Today on the Independent Business Podcast, we are picking up right where we left off. I'm so excited to welcome back Cheval, who is now known as Hayley Paige. You heard that right. 9 months ago, Cheval, who was formerly known as Hayley Paige, joined us on the show to talk about her lawsuit with her former employer. This lawsuit stripped her of her rights from using her name and brand. That situation is what birthed Cheval. Well, in May of 2024, it was announced that she has regained full ownership and control of the Hayley Paige brand and intellectual property rights, so she can now use her name. She is back today to share with us how she's doing in light of the new news, her evolution as a person and business owner within this journey, and what is next for her in this new season. So I'm not going to take up any more of your time. Let's get into this episode, and I am excited to officially reintroduce you to Hayley Paige. I already know you're going to love today's conversation, so make sure to hit that subscribe button so you never have to miss an episode. Well, hello, Hayley.
That's right.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. I mean, we just were talking about it a second ago. I'm like saying Hayley, like I just got chills. It has a whole new meaning now. This is wild. I think I went back and watched your episode from season 1, and now to just kind of here we are, season 2, picking up where we left off. Thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. I love, tying a bow on things.
Yes, tying a bow, exactly. So, let's talk about it, because when you first came on, maybe like over 6 months ago, just you were in the midst of your legal battle. Now, here you are today, like just recently, you can use your name. How do you feel?
What's old is new again. I definitely feel a sense of reunited, and it feels so good, but I definitely detached from this outcome. And it was really part of my psychology and being able to just move forward, and never expected it to go the way it has. And now that it's here, I just am so overwhelmed with joy and want to share and embrace in this moment and excitement. And I feel like it's just a moment to really pay my respects to the support system I've had and take a deep breath,
Yes. Yes. Oh my goodness. Yes. That is just amazing. And I think so many of us as independent business owners, we are all just like rooting for you. Like, I feel like this has been just such a big win just for everybody as independent business owners, just seeing you in action and really fighting for the things that you believe in. And so like to be able to come out on the other side, I think it gives independent business owners just so much hope. And so I want to ask you, because in the first episode, Natalie had asked you of Similarly Live, like, take us back when you signed that contract. Now, obviously you walked us through that. I want to talk about that evolution period in those 3 years, because within that, how you were able to you're like, I can't use the name that I was like born with, like that's who you are, right? And I think as business owners, we have our names attached to our business. And then you went and formed a new name and took your power with that and made another business. And now you have your other name, right? Like there's so many things that have evolved so amazing. And so I would love to just know within those 3 years, and it definitely wasn't easy to do that, to be able to be like, okay, I don't know what this is going to look like right now, but all I do know is that I am an artist. I am a business owner. So I have to pick up with and work with what I currently have in this season and make it work. And so walk us through those 3 years of like what that evolution has truly looked like for you.
Yeah, I mean, you just said so many good sound bites there that really resonated with me at the time. Is I chose to look at it really creatively and say, okay, this is an opportunity for me to go into a space I never ever dreamt of, and I get to challenge myself from a design perspective, learn shoemaking, and I get to kind of come up with a title and an identity for myself to carry me forward. And looking at it that way made it a lot more fun and felt like this is what I have to work with, as opposed to this is what I don't have. And so it was like a big reframing for sure. But one of the things that's been really interesting about going through a big challenge is that you've got this hard, right? It's like your hardship that you're carrying, and there are challenges and a lot of character development, of course. But you do kind of have this responsibility to decide how you're going to carry that weight and what is really going to be productive for you. And I don't know where exactly that mentality came from. In part, I I pay my gratitude to the support system I've had, because
Mm-hmm.
all of these incredible business owners, entrepreneurs, previous brides, store owners that have supported my creative journey, family, friends, fiance, all these people were really showing up to say like, well, what's next? What are you going to do? You know, and it was said with so much excitement and enthusiasm that it made me feel like, oh, I have this wonderful responsibility to move forward, right? And maybe it's not move on,
Mm-hmm.
because there's so many things not within my control during a legal dispute. I definitely felt like, well, I can do this. And I thought of that very wholeheartedly, as opposed to like, oh, poor me or anything like that. So
Mm-hmm.
that was really the mentality of it. And the evolution, I think, comes with just learning things as you go. Because, I dedicated a lot of my life to dress design, and now with shoes, I was like, okay, well, I'm going to be bad at it. Let's just set that record straight. It's new. But, let's learn as we go, and just kind of set the expectation based in somewhat of a reality, so that it's within grasp, if that makes sense.
Yes, but I love that though, because I mean, like you have been a business owner, a designer for so long. And then the fact of like you're having to start from square zero. And I just love that your family just kept asking you like your support system of like what's next in a way to just really challenge you of like, all right, I have no clue what's next. I'm going to try this. It's going to be rough. I'm probably going to be bad at it, but I'm just going to figure it out as I go. And I think, again, it just speaks to the tenacity and resiliency of independent business owners of, okay, maybe things aren't going the way that I want to go. And maybe things just feel completely out of my control, but you take what you have and you make it work. So you knew you had this gift of designing and you're like, all right, I'm just going to design something totally different and give it a new name to where you've been able to build another successful business. And so a question that I want to ask of you is, as you were like building this new business, like how did you find the joy in that just to really keep going? You know what I mean? I think it's not an easy thing, just in general, but then like starting anything is not easy as a business. There's like a lot of times where you're self-doubt and you're like, can I do this? Can I not? And so how did it feel when like you first designed that shoe? Like how did you start finding joy into building that business?
There was definitely a lot of carryover excitement, because there was some skill set in terms of design, right? And like just
Mm-hmm.
inspiration and bringing an idea to fruition and executing on it. And honestly, I think staying busy, not for the sake of hustle and grind, but really like having a lot of things to do, keeps your mind active, and it keeps you feeling like you're progressing. And so that alone, I think, was important. And I also feel like laziness is one of the bigger forms of self disrespect. And so, like, if you can think of it that way, that like, am I being lazy right now? Because if I am, it's a disservice to myself, right? I have the energy to do it. I am able-bodied. I've got all this stuff in front of me. Like, I better put myself to work, kind of thing. And I feel like that was really helpful in building a new business, and just saying like one step at a time, of course. But you also can exercise discretion in terms of what you do want to share, because there is this overwhelming pressure nowadays, especially on social media, to feel like you have to be really vulnerable, and you have to like share like all of these pitfalls and moments on your face. And while I definitely think there is some value to that, especially if it kind of helps you go through the catharsis of it, I think you can also decide what your narrative is, and like,
Yes.
this might seem debilitating, or this might seem like a big setback, but am I going to actually choose to see it that way? And I'm going to choose to have it affect my life that way, and then you realize you actually kind of have some power in that narrative and how you want to show up. And so I think that's important to do for yourself. Like, what is really going to be helpful and productive for you?
Yes, I love that so much. Just so many like things that you shared, because when you said too that laziness is a form of like disservice to you, I was listening to one of my favorite podcast, Balanced Black Girl, and the other person said like too, like consistency is a form of self-love, right? So that was something to me that has totally changed the game of even just becoming more disciplined in my business and just life in general. Of I am doing a disservice by not utilizing my gift in some capacity, right? And I just love that mindset shift of, no matter what you're facing, number one, you control the narrative. There are things that you can control. So it's like, hey, maybe if you just got to take a step back, breathe, but you're going to figure it out, and you're definitely not alone. I think that's something that I always remind myself as a business owner when I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing, or I'm doubting myself. I'm always like, Akua, you're going to figure it out, and you're not alone. Like, the answer is always there. And usually the answer is right in front of you. You just have to stop and slow down and see things for what they are objectively, and then make your next move. So I really just love that you shared that, even too with like being vulnerable. I think, yes, I think we can share our stories, but we still matter in the process. You don't have to dishonor yourself just for likes or things that are just extremely fleeting. And so even for you, I'm sure like within that journey, there are things that you have honored that are just for you in that space, be able to move forward in a way that's going to be productive for you. Like, you're like, this is the way that I'm going to do this my way. And this is what's going to work for me and honor myself. So like, and also you detached from it to where you're like, this is amazing. And like, now I get to go into something new. And so I would love to talk a little bit just about that detachment. I think a lot of us as business owners, again, our identity is in our work, everything. And I'm even still like deconstructing that of like, I built my business for the life that I want to live, right? Like, I've always said this all the time, that we have this thing in our mind where, you know, we think, okay, if I have the business that I have today, I'm successful. But really, you need to be happy in order to be successful. So for you, how have you detached, just in general, right? Like, not even just with this whole journey, but just as a business owner, any projects that you're working on where you don't feel like your value is tied to your work?
It's very difficult exercise, and there is a behavioral approach to it, because you almost have to train your brain. And I actually found when I was in my legal dispute, I would have saying to myself, when the lawsuit is over, I will do this, right? Or when this happens, I will do this. And the problem with that kind of math is that you're depending on a certain outcome to happen that you might not even have control over, to depict, you know, your destiny. It's almost like letting the circumstances be in the driver's seat. And what I really wanted to focus on was, okay, what outcome would I like to see happen, and how can I get to that outcome? And even if that's not the outcome, how can it just be a direction that is really productive, as opposed to, you know, what is the speed of that direction? Or, you know, it's more about figuring out what you can do in the here and now with what you have. And I don't know, I like to think about, you know, the story arc of things, and that like what you're doing in this moment is going to be a lot different than what you're doing when a circumstance changes later, right? And your story is even going to evolve, because while the bulk of the story is still there, your relationship to the story is going to change, because you're going to evolve yourself, right? And so like now when I tell my story, it's the same story, but I actually tell it in a much different light because of what has happened. And that is all the while important to catch people at different stages of life when they're telling their story, because like the entrepreneur that is hustle and grinding every single day in and out is going to tell a different story of what they need to do in that moment than when they're on the other side of some massive success, right? And so it's just, it's important to think about that in terms of like the craft in being human, and why we give each other grace in the areas we're at in life.
You said that so beautifully. Like, yes, like your relationship to the story changes. So every single time you're sharing it, the outcomes of like what you need, like everything changes because you have changed. Right. And I think that is such, like I just got chill. Girl, Hayley, I just love saying your name.
Oh, body chills. So yeah.
I know. I'm like, yes. But oh my gosh, that is so true. Just the fact too, that as business owners, that we are also human. And so to honor that, right? And that is just such a great reminder, even for me, because again, like when you're on that hamster wheel and you're hustling, and you know, because we all have that seasons. We have that seasons of grind. We have that seasons of rest. We have those in between. And, you know, you do sometimes can forget that you're human. And so it's like, I love that. And it's just a reminder to sometimes just take a step back, see where your story is, and see like your relationship to that. And as you're going, because you're evolving as business owners. And so I love that. That is just Bing. And so another question that I have is, even within that journey, and now you also created this nonprofit, right, that you talked about too in the last episode, of just how you're providing these resources to business owners. And so again, I think it's just really honing in again of just the importance of, because you said this too amazingly, and it like hit home for me, because you were saying how, as business owners, when we are come up with this amazing opportunity, right? Like we don't necessarily take the time, or we kind of have this tunnel vision where it's just like this one shot. And I just want to reiterate that, because I have been in that position so many times where I'm like, this is it for me. This is what I'm going to do. This is my purpose. This is it. And it was awful. Awful. The outcome just wasn't anywhere near than what I thought it was. And so I kind of pivoted here and there, but so I'll ask one question, I'll ask the one after that. But for you within that, as business owners, how can we, when we have this opportunity, really make sure that we're prepared, whether yes or no? Like, you don't have to take the opportunity, but sometimes, again, we, like, to your point, where we have this tunnel vision, we're like, this is our only shot, when it's not. How do we as business owners just really prepare ourselves, I guess, or like what tips do you have within that?
There's definitely a mindset of scarcity, or like a scarcity cycle that sometimes almost feels like a comfort. So when you look at these big opportunities and think, oh my gosh, this is my one shot, because it seems exactly like what you want, we tend to feel like we have to mold, or make sure we don't lose that opportunity. And we become very hyper-focused on just making sure that opportunity happens, as opposed to the ways in which that opportunity happens. And so honestly, I think my biggest piece of advice is really to be patient and believe in the two things can be true model, which is you can still secure your dream, you can still go after and chase it, while also putting the proper foundation and checks and balances in place to protect it. And ultimately, if it's that delicate that you lose this opportunity, it probably wasn't the right one. Because not that there is this, like, I do believe in destiny. I believe things happen for a reason. Not everyone does. I don't think you have to live your life that way to see success come to fruition for yourself. But in a scenario where there is an ability to look at things from both perspectives, it can really serve you well in setting a good precedent, because unspoken expectations become future resentments. And so if you don't say it in that first meeting, or you don't get those questions out, you could be setting a precedent that could hurt you later, and very generally speaking there, but like, that's important to think about. And we don't know what we don't know. So it's, you got to just kind of put as much as you possibly can out on the table early, have the first fight, have the, those questions answered. Don't feel too guilty about making sure you're heard and what your concerns are.
Yes. And I think even just to add to that, I have learned just from an episode that we just recently recorded with another guest about how, as business owners, we do struggle with like conflict resolution, like just even in general of just going into conflict. It's not an easy thing to do. And so when you have a lot, even, I have felt myself too, like when I had that opportunity in the past, I was too afraid to even question it because I didn't want to inconvenience them. I felt like because I'm like, and I think for me as a business owner now looking back, I was like, I have to really work on my confidence as a business owner and my abilities and the gifts of like what I truly bring to the table. Because then you think you realize your worth, and like you think differently, you move differently. And so that's something even too I have been leaning more into, of like, it's okay to have that first fight, right? Like it's a healthy thing, because then that's your opportunity. The earlier you see things, that's quicker, then you're like, okay, if this is for me or this is not for me. And I think especially like I'm a millennial, so like we just like are people pleasers and just really don't want to like rock the boat. And
child generation.
Yes, for real. And I think a lot of us are still like really deconstructing that. And I think business owners listening, like, I just want to encourage you that conflict is a good thing. It is a good thing. It will reveal so many things about you and the other party, and what it truly is that you're looking for. And that communication piece, expectations, I think will save so many business owners. And I have to I tell myself all the time, like, I matter, like, Akua, you matter too in this deal. And I think it's such a good reminder. And so for you now, like, here you are, how do you view everything that you've walked through, just your journey in general? Like, how do you view everything? Like, how do you view your business now? How do you view your life now, as you're in this new season, after everything you've walked through?
I'm grateful for the grit because
Mm,
I think anytime you go through a hardship or a challenge, you learn something new about yourself. And just exactly to your point, so excellently put, is understanding how somebody handles conflict is very important, especially in a business relationship, because you're going to have these
mhm,
massive challenges no matter what. They are going to come out of the woodworks like a magic show, like they will be there.
mm,
And the way you kind of handle those things is really important. Um, but I think what I am really finding peace in is that,
mhm,
yeah, of course, we're on the other side of a legal dispute. I'm so excited to go back to a craft and a livelihood that I like who I am there. I like who I
mhm,
became through dress design. I love who I became through shoe design as well. And I think when you carry that bit of personal development and you acknowledge that, okay, I didn't do everything right and there were definitely some mistakes along the way, to really like who you are through that and like
mm,
say that who I became through it was a lot more important than what actually happened, is something to kind of hang your hat on and feel secure in, especially going through something where you feel very insecure. So it's weird because I don't feel more confident.
mm,
It's almost like I feel more secure in myself and that I can handle really tough things if and when they come. And I appreciate that. And I think I also want to be able to share and leave a good footprint for people, like tell them the secrets and like don't do this and here's an example of what
yeah.
not to do. And I'm like really happy to own and share those things, just because I went the hard way and maybe it's so that
Mhm,
someone else doesn't have to, but I very much feel like the rising tide mentality lifts all ships, and that we want to lift people up, and as we climb our ladders we extend those ladders. And so that's really like a sincere mindset that I feel in this next chapter. That's where I get a lot of purpose. So yeah, I think that's
mm.
probably the bigger message for me.
Yeah, I love that. And it was something that you said earlier, and I'm asking out of curiosity, and I'm sorry if this question does not make sense. But you kind of talked about too of like you're excited to go back because you like the person that you were to like this craft. And so do you feel that when you were making like obviously designing shoes and wedding dresses, like it just evolved into two totally different people? And like how do you see yourself merging that? I don't know. Does that make sense?
No, it
I don't know.
does.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
It's a lot to think about too, because I'm so proud of Cheval because, it was
Yeah.
a moniker and it was like a brazen uh, attempt to really just manifest my own destiny and like, let's find a way forward. And there's been this really exciting momentum and camaraderie that's come with that. And now that I'm like, oh my gosh, I have Hayley Paige back and, I can brand this as well, I kind of see them as sister brands. Um,
Mm,
which is a really lovely alchemy of things, because you evolve as a person. Of course, I shape shifted into shoes from dresses, and so now I think it's just a celebration of, the evolution. But there has been that common thread and that bit of signature DNA and that desire for me to simply connect with women on my journey and through, the mediums that I use artistically. But that thread has been there consistently. And so that makes me feel like I've never really lost connection with the creativity, and that I've never really lost those relationships that I value so deeply. And it kind of goes back to the same thing with security. Is it like it feels right at home, and what a nice feeling to have, and want to create a place for more people to belong and feel like they're on their own special journey as well.
yes. Oh, I love that so much. And I'm so excited to see just how the two sister brands just come together. And I think it's just, again, it's just going to show that evolution of who you are. And I know so many of us as business owners are just so excited to see that. And so I really want to ask you, what do you have to say to business owners in general, whether they're just starting out, they're, been in the game for a little bit, and just think of just your journey in general as an entrepreneur. What do you want to say to independent business owners? Because I think for me, I know personally, I'm just so inspired. And I think it's for me, I take from you of like advocacy, like, you know what I mean? Like you matter definitely speak for your needs and what it is that you want. And I love how you said that two things can be true, right? Like, of course, you have this great opportunity, because I think a lot of us, again, it's that scarcity mindset where we feel like we always say it's this and that's it. It's not this and, right? We sometimes just don't have that mentality. So that's what I take away from you. But what would you have? What would you say with to business owners?
I feel like I want to say that the thing you work on works on you. And so, like, to take that a little bit further, it's interesting to think about your worst days and the moments that are really hard for your ego or for your goals and this trajectory of what you've envisioned for yourself. And you later find out that those days and those moments were really soulful and really impact your soul for the better, because you learn things about yourself that you didn't know before. And so those hardships and like the Ryan Holiday that the obstacle is the way, you know, it's not cliche because it's very true. And no matter what your craft is, what your business is, as you're doing the things, these things are impacting you too. And so there really is this synergy, and to be very mindful of who you're becoming along the way. I think just being self-aware in that goes a long way. And so those days that are bad for your ego are typically very good for your soul. So you've got that going for you, even on your worst days.
Yes. Oh my gosh. That is so, so powerful. And I think we just don't talk about that enough, of like, who are we becoming as we are building our business, like what it is that you're doing. And so, because I think about myself in certain areas, I took a break years ago in my business. Like I took a year off. And it was true because I just didn't like who I was. And I was like, I needed to figure out what made Akua happy. Like I found myself, because like looking at what other people were doing, and I was okay, well, this is what I know the needs of my audience is, but it just didn't fill my soul. And I was like, you know, and I ended up resenting my work. And I think it's such a good point to step back and always check in with yourself of like, who am I becoming? And those hard days are good for the soul, because you know, as business, because sometimes we can get too comfortable. We can get too comfortable, and entrepreneurship is anything but. So I absolutely love that. So when you go back and think of your journey in 2011, and here we are, would you do it differently?
Oh, goodness. You know, that's such a tough question, because like, if you're really actually given the opportunity to go back, right? And after learning everything I've learned, I would absolutely do things differently. I mean, I don't know anyone that would. I understand the mindset of like, oh no, I wouldn't want to change anything because it would change who I am now, right? And if you're really happy with how things are going now, you wouldn't want anything to change. But like, if I actually had this knowledge that I have now, I definitely think it would have impacted, you know, my trajectory even better, hopefully. But I do have to pay my respects to the fact that I am just somebody that had to learn the way I did. And, you know, it goes back to my early days in school. Like I was somebody that like really had to study. Like I had to know that material or I would fail the test. And so I'm somebody that just kind of has to put that extra work in to really have it click there. Even for design now, like it takes me a really long time to get to a place with a design that I'm like, this is good. This is a chef's kiss, you know, and then I change it 100 more times, you know, so it's like, I know that about myself. And so because I have that bit of just understanding in my process, I can't imagine doing it a different way. But, you know, knowledge is power, and smart people learn from their mistakes. Wise people learn from other people's mistakes. So I've been saying that a lot lately, but it's true.
Yes. But I love that though. I think that's such like a very real answer. You know what I mean? Because because I think of myself, my own journey, it's like, would you really go back? Like, would you really? Like, you know what I mean?
Really? Yeah.
But would you really? And I'm like, hell no. Like, I would have rather learned this lesson from a different way. So
volume of work that you've put in, right? When you think about that, you're like, I don't want to do that again. You know, like, but maybe if you're more efficient and you've carried your talent this far, you know, maybe it would make sense to go back and like do it even better. You know, I don't know. It's such a good question to think about though in hindsight.
Yes, it absolutely is. And so I'm really curious now, what is next for you? I know you're going to talk about marrying the two brands, but what else is up? What else is next for you in life and business? What do you have going on?
Yeah, I am so excited because my fiance and I, we've been engaged for, 5 years, and we've really put everything on hold for a number of reasons. But we're probably going to turn a corner and start wedding planning again,
Mm,
which will be really exciting.
amazing.
And I think going through a lot of the challenges we've had a health crisis, we've had a lawsuit, we've had, a big move. I'm really proud of our relationship, and we're in
Mm,
such different places now than when we had first met. And so to see our relationship grow and become very different people along the way while still growing together has been really
together,
nice. I'm such
yes.
a romantic that like
Mm,
I love reflecting on that. And yeah, we're just at this stage now where it's so exciting, and I want to do right by as many people as possible. And
mm,
getting into the wedding dress space will be so epic and wonderful. And so I'm really looking forward to that. And yeah, I have to figure out, I have to get my ducks in a row, and I got to get them in wedding
mm.
dresses and in matching shoes and all the things. And so I definitely feel like there is a lot of work ahead, but I'm just energized for it. So that's great. I
Yes.
could be very burned out right now. I mean, a lot of people could be. So, like, it's
Hmm.
nice to feel like, okay, I'm up for the challenge kind of thing, which I hope
Yes.
most people feel too.
Yeah, and I love that too because I can like feel that this season for you is gonna be like a lot of curiosity. Like I can already like tell like just so many things you get to play, like in a
Yeah,
sense, right? Like as business owners, like you get to play, which is so fun. And you can have the most beautiful, amazing, tangible moments in your business when you get to play. And so I just like hearing your answer, just even all of your, just in this whole conversation, it has just like so much wisdom, but also too so much curiosity, so much excitement, so much energy,
aw,
and
thank
we are
you.
just yes, absolutely. And I know as an independent business, we are just so excited for you, so excited to cheer you on. And so I'm going to ask the question again. We did this the last time, but what do you think is the biggest differentiator between the businesses that succeed and the ones that fail?
The biggest differentiator is not quitting. I would say, honestly, the biggest differentiator is that the businesses that succeed just got up one more time and they fell, which is like the
Mm,
probably most unsexy answer. But business is really a game of setbacks and keeping your enthusiasm
mhm,
through those setbacks,
mm,
and making sure that you want it more than you're afraid of it, and the fearless mentality that
mm,
like you're not absent of fear, you just fear it less than you want it. And fear is like
mhm,
a mile wide, but it's only like this deep. So you've got to go
mm.
in it and get through that toward your goal. And when you slip and fall, you just kind of get back up. But I think that's the
Yes.
big one. That's the differentiator.
Yes, but it's such a it is like you said it is unsexy, but it's so important because I just think of myself like my therapist. She was like, choose your heart. Because right, like sometimes and for me, I'm like the unknown like is way better for me and I'm still afraid, but the unknown is way better than what's happening right now. That's how I view things. And I think that's how I'm
Right.
like stepping like, all right, cool, we're gonna do this because it's hard regardless. And so no matter what, like that is true. Entrepreneurship is full of a lot of humbling setbacks and where you have to pivot, go back to the drawing board. Okay. And sometimes all you got is like like little I just think in terms of like with my business and like my strategies, like sometimes I'll take like one small little thing, but it's like it's it should fuel you to keep going because that one small little change can propel you to that next step, right? And
Right.
so in a way that you just never ever thought like you imagined. So Hayley, thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you for being back here. I have loved this conversation, and I know our audience absolutely has loved this too. You are our first returning guest too, by the way. So I'm like,
No
oh my gosh, yay!
way. Oh, that
Yes,
is amazing with two names. No.
two names. I know.
I wanted to ask you, what does
So
your name mean?
yeah, my name means Wednesday. I was born on a
Wednesday.
Wednesday. Yes. Yep.
Oh,
So I'm from Ghana. And so I actually have two names, which a lot of people do not know this.
do tell.
So Yes. So my legal name that I was born with is Alexis Adibobi. And so then also I also have my Ghanaian name. And so Akua means Wednesday. And then Kanadu is on my dad's side, my grandmother's maiden name. So I'm the oldest girl. So I carry his name. So yes. So that's even just talking about like, it's been really, because names are, especially just being an immigrant here in the US, like growing up first generation, names are so important. Like when people would mess up my name, I'm like, no, you're going to say it right. Like you're going to say it right. You know what I mean? Like
in every language.
Right. Yes. And so, but it's just been really cool to hear your story and just see the evolution of like your name, but then you took back your power and you gave yourself a new name. Like it's really cool to see that as well, of just you have control and you have the power and you control your narrative. And I think you've done that so wonderfully. So I love Hayley and I also love Cheval because they're both just powerhouses, right? Like like what you've created with both of them has been amazing. So I'm just truly inspired.
Well, I'm so happy to be a returning guest. So thank you so much for the support and just wonderful to chat with you. Hopefully we can go for round 3 and maybe we can do it in person. That would be pretty spectacular. I'll come to Chicago.
Hayley, thank you. Thank you so much for being here and for everybody listening. Until next time. That ends our episode of the Independent Business Podcast. Everything we've discussed today can be found at podcast.honeybook.com. Head to our website to access for show notes, relevant links, and all of the resources that you need to level up. And if you've enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe to the podcast to make sure you never miss our future content. Drop us a review and leave our guests some love on social, and thank you again for listening.